Early, Lockett took the mark. You probably missed that because I was talking over the top of it, but Lockett took the mark. Terry Wheeler was really spitting chips at this stage. Lockett went for goal at the siren at the end of the first quarter and missed, in fact. But the siren had sounded as the ball was halfway on its way to Lockett. Now, Morris had a terrific match yesterday, and it's a bit cruel to show this one incident, but it was in context, and Coleman was able to take the goal after Morris missed the mark. Delray was very exciting. He played extremely well, not only in his goal-kicking ability, but in the fact that he could win the ball and provided such movement up forward. And with Royal, they're a most unlikely combination. Rowan Smith made a mistake here. He was run down by Craven. Lockett kicked the goal. Scores were level at that stage. But Smith came back and took a terrific mark under pressure. He showed a lot of courage a few minutes later. Royal, brilliant goal round the body for his exciting goal, which really lifted Footscray at that stage. And as I said, he and Del Rey are doing very well. Now, Tony, our special guest in a moment, but Stewie Lowe was sadly missed by St Kilda. What's his situation?
I spoke to Peter Hudson, the football director, down there today. They will have him back to play against the West Coast Eagles next week. Actually, while the conference was going on, the post-match conference last night, Stewie was in the gymnasium upstairs actually lifting weights on his shoulder, bringing himself back to sort of full fitness. So obviously he was missed there yesterday, but he'll be back to playing the big one. Not bad after 1 week's out with an AC joint.
No, they're playing
very strong character.
Yeah, West Coast next week at Waverley, and
they know they have to win it.
Yeah, they could be facing a third consecutive loss. Dean Gregg came off injured again yesterday,
and it unleashed Atkins to get 45 possessions for the day. And Dean Gregg has injured the ankle that he had early in the year, so it could be a bit of a problem for Dean Gregg. A wonderful player, a good stopper in the centre, but he'll be out next week for sure.
OK, he's in trouble. What about Scotty McGuinness? What's his injury?
Victoria weren't the victors, but football was. The old cliche, good for footy.
Yeah, it was. I just wonder, you hated being beaten by Collingwood. Is it worse being beaten by South Australia?
No.
Okay.
do those state selectors all have an input with the coaches to what's going on the field, Ron?
When the moves are good and come off...
So you're all unanimous in not putting Crawley on?
It's Cal and I, when they don't come off, we don't have an input, do we?
Not a thing to do with it.
Why did Danny... You're an ex-full-back, Cal. Why did Danny Frawley go over there if you sat him on the bench all night and didn't get a run? When Kernahan was going berserk.
Well, is there a rule that says he must get a run?
There's no rule, but he's a natural full-back, and you played a guy who is not a full-back on the best, one of the best forwards in Australia.
We did a lot of research on performances man on man, and we found that Bayes has got a very good record on Kernahan, whether it be at centre-half-back, a full-back, which could have happened but didn't on Tuesday night.
So now we're playing on statistics now entirely,
are we? Truthful, I wasn't unhappy with the performance of Mark Bayes.
Mark Bayes has been in poor form for a month.
I would have, and Danny hasn't had a great month either.
But he's a natural full-back, Cal.
I would not have liked to be in the shoes of Mark Bayes. I thought he performed creditably.
He did well, Mark Bayes.
It's just unfortunate that Danny Frawley found himself in a situation we couldn't slot him in anywhere else during the game.
OK, well, that's interesting. Did the telephone break down in the second term, Ron, between the coach and the... Because surely there had to be a couple of moves. I mean, Steins onto Hines. Hines just tore Victoria apart in that second term on a slow ruckman in wind. I'm not being facetious.
Well, you sometimes give a player a chance. Maybe it could have been done. I agree with that. Maybe it could have been done. I
thought it was a turning point in the match, didn't you?
Well...
And Nailey coming on.
It's a little bit hard. Well, Nailey coming on, a guy from the... A bolt from the blue, so to speak. He's a guy who saves his bets for playing against Victoria.
We didn't have statistics on him.
It was a bit hard to rearrange things to sort of fix up.
Didn't we have statistics on him, Ron?
It was quite interesting. It was settled. OK, we'll leave it all. Welcome, Peter, and welcome, Kel. Tony, welcome to the program. Tony Liberatore, the Brownlow medalist from a couple of years ago. Man who's won the Morrish medal, the Gardner medal, the Brownlow medal, last year's Footscray best and fairest. Gee, Lippers, there's a fair bit there, isn't there?
You've got enough room on your chest, Tony, for all those medals.
Feel like a war hero, I guess, when you go home at night.
Well, actually, Dougie Hawkins says I've got more medals than Audie Murphy, so...
Hey, and Lippers, you're taller than Audie Murphy too.
Yeah, I think I might be.
He's only 5'4", and he's dead and you're alive. Yeah. That's very important to you. Lippers, last year, you had a knee operation at the start of the year, didn't you? And it just put you behind the... I know you played every game last year, but... Even though you won Footscray's best and fairest, you seem to not have the year that you've had this year and also the year before. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the operation was actually done towards the end of 1990 and my recovery was quite good, and I did a hell of a lot of physiotherapy on it, and, you know, I had great surgeons in David Young and so on, and I really worked hard to get myself right, and, you know, I guess I didn't have a pre-season last year, and I've certainly find my fitness this year has been a key factor for my performance so far.
And Livy, you've had a couple of knockbacks on your road to fame and success. Has that been a driving force for you to prove people wrong, or you just gone along and love your footy and have a go anyway?
Yeah, I guess it's, I mean, a bit of both, I'd say. You know, there have been a lot of, I guess, ups and downs in my career, but I mean, I think you just take it all in stride. And I mean, I love my football as much as I have when I was playing as a junior footballer. And I mean, whether I play, I mean, obviously playing senior football is the most important thing, but even playing reserve football, you know, I give 110%, and I certainly enjoy my football, yeah.
Libba, when you had the operation, is the trauma before the operation, you know, thinking, am I...
Questions around with the panel to Tony.
Right, well, I gave 3 votes to Simon Atkins in the centre. I thought he was probably the best player on the ground, but then it was a toss-up and very hard to find 2 and 1. But I went for Russell Morris, although his opponent, Coleman, did particularly well for Footscray at centre-half forward. He certainly didn't lower his colours. And Nicky Winmar had a sensational first quarter. He had the compliment of Frost being moved onto him to stop him on the half-back line. Then they had to use Winmar up forward. Then they used him up in the centre of the ground in the last quarter to get some movement. But there are a lot of other players. I thought that Liberatore, Tony, was good. Burke Harvey was sensational in the first quarter. Dwyer for St Kilda was also instrumental, but it was a very, very even game. It was a real slog, and I think that Footscray got away because they ran past a little bit better. They were quicker with their hands. There's Coleman, a focal point, and Liberatore's disposal of the ball was particularly good, but the conditions weren't good. Very windy. The ground, well, as you can see there, was heavy. And I think that the pressure from the players put on one another around midfield allowed the ball not to be delivered in the best way. That was a shocking kick. But Del Rey up forward, he was probably a difference. Like Lockett down one end, really doesn't move around enough. And they had to move Winmar down to the forward line to at least get some movement in the forward line, whereas Del Rey's prepared to come up the ground. At one stage, he was up on the centre square in the last quarter, and he set it up with a handball, and I think that finished in a goal.
Tom,
but Footscray is the first time I've seen them, and I was really impressed with them. They've got some good youngsters. I'll quickly mention them. Smith, who came on, really was cut apart by Winmar. Frost, a goer, but he's got to learn to clean up his disposal. Critiok, I think he went on to Harvey on the wing and certainly limited him, and Ballantyne up forward. Good players. I was impressed with Footscray.
Don, would you like to throw a question at Tony, who's in here this morning?
Tony, was it a plan to go? I've seen Footscray in 2 weeks now, and Lockett didn't move around last week at the MCG, and he didn't move yesterday. Was it a plan to drop Wine back there, or is that what he has been doing week after week, Scott Wine?
I guess it really wasn't. Oh, yeah, it was worked out to be a little bit like that, although Barry Stanfield, you know, you've probably seen the replay, cut off a few of the leads off Tony Lockett, and he, you know, he had his fist to the ball on a number of occasions. So I think it was a bit of both, but Scotty does play when there's a good full forward. He does sort of play a little bit backward of centre.
You certainly lift your tackling up too, Tony. Has that been something of the Footscray side? As I said, it's the first time I've seen them play, and your tackling was absolutely fantastic. You mentioned earlier in your interview, man on man, so it's obviously been a conscious effort by the guys to play more or less old-fashioned football. Oh, yeah, I guess so. You know, I mean, you look at the Eagles when they've sort of played their football, you look at how well, I guess, Moldhouse has put their team into perspective with their man-on-man, and that's basically what it all boils down to. If you can beat your opponent, and if your side wins more on those one-on-one contests, and more likely that I think that side will win the game.
Liverpool.
The next mark, little Libba. Look, 2 bites. It shows his usual determination.
An ex-Hawk, big Lawrence Bingham here. Nice mark, 2 grabs, completes a pretty handy mark.
A promising young player for Footscray is Rowan Smith. Have a look at that, back with the flight. That takes a lot of courage. Great mark.
Yes, and Gowers often has these types of marks, the 1 and 2. I'm not sure if he controlled it long enough.
Darren Crocker from the back, kept his eyes on it and was awarded the mark.
And best on ground yesterday has a perfect sit, Chris Nace in classic style.
Jimmy Steins, he was on crutches during the week. Have a look at this for a mark, and he is back in tip-top form. Terrific mark at the centre of the pack.
Yes, and last night over at Carrara, we have Steve McGluckley, and just shows the importance of front position, particularly for a smaller player.
And unusual to see Mark Zanotti down the forward line. Have a look at this as he flies from the back. Pity his kicking wasn't as good as his mark. He looked very happy about that, but Kel and I both decided that the winner was David Grant. And when we have a look at it again in replay, you will see the courage of David Grant under extreme pressure. 2 Footscray players. Look at that, in front and still held onto a terrific mark.
Good on you, David. You join some of the other round-by-round winners, including Wanganeen, Caverton, Darren Jarman, Ridley, Winmar, your teammate. Goals of the week. I should point out that Tony Hall's goal is not eligible, the goal from Tuesday night, that sensational goal for goals of the week in the State of Origin. In just a moment, Bob and Ron to have a look at the goals of the week.
The goal of the week.
Fitzroy and the Swans and Jamie Lawson bringing a regulation goal back. Quite a nice kick and puts it through for quite a good goal.
And here's Minton Connell. There's very little space here. Almost got the ball stuck between the posts.
Oh, what a clever story, Ron. And here's Brian Royal, who actually has developed into a marvellous goal sneak, and he's got around, made himself balanced and put through a very nice goal.
And here's Brian Royal again. A suggestion of a blind turn here, just a suggestion. And a beautiful sneak goal by the forward pocket specialist. And that's what Brian Royal has become.
And I don't know if I'm...
He's on 91 and 61 for Kernahan and 53 for Ablett. Del Ray, the big mover yesterday, with 48. Well, the Tony Hall goal wasn't eligible, but let's have one more look at it because it was quite extraordinary. Ron, I wanted to see Ron and Kel cry just a little bit. Why not? Have a look at this. Ken Hinkley and Tony Hall, they had a terrific duel, didn't they, on Tuesday night? And well, Peter McKenna, I should ask, because he kicked more goals than anyone else at the table. Peter, is this one of the great goals you've seen?
Well, it was fantastic. Man on man, he just hipped Hinkley out of the way. Now, that was a check side kick or a boomerang kick, and he did have a look, and he's a South Australian, and they have perfected that kick. Top goal by Tony Hall.
I wonder why the South Australians call it check side.
Done well.
But they always have a jack.
No, table, Ron.
And they call it trial games and all sorts of funny lingo over there.
Oh, we say a lot of things. It came in with Jack Odie and Sturt. Ron, I haven't got time to go into it. But
trial game makes sense because it is a sort of a trial.
Standing.
They have a budget in Adelaide, not a record.
And they stand them, don't they?
I don't understand the check side.
No, OK, I don't really.
I've only got 2 words, Bruce. Fitzroy and Eagles.
Fitzroy to beat Essendon and the Eagles to beat Sydney. Ron, do you agree with Bob?
Essendon, Eagles.
I agree with Bob. I'll go Fitzroy and Eagles.
And I'll go the Bombers and the Eagles.
Do any of you give Fitzroy or Essendon a chance of making the 6? Either of them if they win today?
Yes, a slight chance. Okay. Very slight.
Fair enough. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen.
Mathematically, Ron, yes.
By the way, Bobby, you won the 3 votes today.
Oh, thank you,
Ron won 2 for asking the most questions, and Curl and Peter tied for 1 each. After the break.